This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Thursday morning. It's January 11th after the Wolves overtime loss in Boston on Wednesday night. I've got Kyle Theige with me here today. We're obviously going to be diving into that game for the vast majority of this episode today. But Kyle, can I just talk for like a minute to start this off?
Just about life, or you need it? Yeah.
No, about travel, or just about. I just feel like we need to set like the pretext of what this game was. Obviously, everybody knows that they flew in there the day of, and it was a back-to-back and all that. But I actually think it was bigger than that, and I just think to have like, not to make excuses, but to have like, I don't know, a real conversation about where this was. It's a big part of it. I mean, in last night's game, Naz Reid played 37 minutes. Kyle Anderson played 39 minutes. Nickeil Alexander-Walker played 40 minutes. Karl-Anthony Towns played 44 minutes. And Anthony Edwards played 46 minutes. And they did that after arriving in Boston at 1 p.m. that afternoon. A day of arrival for the game. I mean, due to weather, that's just super rare. But even if there wouldn't have been the weather thing, that's a brutal back-to-back. Orlando to Boston, that's a 3-hour flight. Like, that doesn't normally happen on back-to-backs. The Boston game was also the fourth and final game of a 4-game road trip. That in and of itself is difficult. And this was also their 16th game in 30 days. They also, every one of those 16 teams that they played in the 30 days had a winning record. Of those 16 games, 11 of them were on the road. The 16-game stretch, because 11 of them were on the road, they flew over 17,000 miles in that time from December 1st to January 10th. When like also Christmas happens then, New Year's Eve happens then. And these are real human people too. And again, I don't say any of that like to make an excuse or give them a full-on pass for some of the things that we will talk about that were kind of inexcusable at the end of the game, but that's important. And all other 29 teams are going to have like a difficult stretch like that over the course of this season. But the Wolves had that stretch before this game last night against the best team in the NBA, and they competed with that team. They fought with that team for 53 minutes, and that in and of itself is commendable. And I was just thinking, leaving the locker room last night, so much of the talk was just about what they didn't do down the stretch. And I get that, like even from the players and from Finch and late game execution and all of that. They did play a really good and admirable, I guess would be the word, game prior to that. And so while they are focusing on what didn't happen at the end of the game, and we're going to focus a lot on what didn't happen at the end of the game, that's a pretty important place to start, is to note that pretext of the past 30 days.
Yeah, and the little irony here for those on YouTube, if you could like and subscribe, it helps us out. Dane's background today is a little cleaner than his normal background because he too has been traveling, right? And I get sometimes people are like, oh, there's a little difference between Ant and Dane. Like, yeah, vertical, but it still sucks to, you were in New York over the last weekend, then you go to Dallas and Orlando and now Boston. And even Jim said last night on the call, so again, this is cool, right? Because you were at the game last night at Boston Garden. I was at my couch. So we have two different perspectives. But Jim even said, like, after the Orlando game, it was kind of nice. Just go back to my hotel and sleep, get some good sleep. But it's still a drag, and it is so rare, to have teams in any season fly in the day of a game. Like, that is just, as much as you like follow these guys and stuff, they have their routines and they're down to a T. Like, they do have their afternoon naps.
They were pissed about it. Like, in the Orlando locker room, we were in there doing post-game interviews, and that's when the team was informed that they couldn't fly that night, and all the players were just like, oh my God, which to me, like, to your point about the routine thing, I'm kind of on the gym side of it. Or, when I travel, that's what I do. You take the flight the next morning and you get your more sleep rather than getting into your hotel in the new city at like 3:30 in the morning, but it is their routine. And for them, they wanted to fly out night of from Orlando to get to Boston, and they were upset that they didn't, and were definitely super groggy when they did get into Boston at 1 p.m.
Okay, cool. So can I talk for a sec?
Yeah, sorry.
We're 5 minutes in. I'm going to take what you just said, context, real context. Some people struggle with context. I'm going to take that a step further. If you're coming into this pod today on Thursday, January 11th, and you're looking for a Fire Finch Montag or hard criticism of the 22-year-old and 23-year-old on the 16th game of a death march, as Chris Hine called it, a death march that they go 9-7 in, right? It was 3 weeks ago when, my favorite podcaster, Britt Robson, was like, if they just go 8-8, I think I'd be happy. Well, they went above that, and they still stayed in first place. So if you have pitchforks and flames and you want just to rip the team, today is not your podcast. Shout out to our sponsors at Falling Knife and Stone and Skillet and all these other spots. Go listen to them. Go support them. That's not what today's podcast is, because I thought you woke up yesterday morning on the heels of turning the Magic into Muggles and blowing that team out on the front end of a back-to-back. They're 10.5-point underdogs last night in Boston against a team that's undefeated at home. By far the best team in the league. Like, I love me some Minnesota Timberwolves, but that Boston Celtics team from 1-8, 1-9 has just elite size and elite shot making and elite defense. And everyone thought they were just going to get blown out. Like, I actually thought for the first time in my life I was going to see Josh Minott and Leonard Miller play together, and maybe they would drag Wendell Moore out. And to be up 7 with 2 minutes left in the game, I mean, that was some gritty shit, man. That was, you want to talk about, forget moral victories, that was like a culture loss. That was incredible.
Culture loss.
That would be, no, I'm serious. Like, Chris Finch could have just, because you wake up, they haven't flown out of Orlando yet. You get the news that, like, Mike and Rudy aren't gonna play, which is good. Like, finally lean into that a little bit. And then you're probably just thinking, like, well, they're just going to get pummeled. And everyone's like, whatever, I'll be fine if they get pummeled. They've already done what they're supposed to do during this march. And they fought their asses off. Like, they really grinded and played. And we'll get into some of the stuff at the end of the game that was either questionable or just downright kind of embarrassing and the way they executed. But I just can't anymore. I won't. If you left that game last night thinking anything other than that was a really good moment, good reps, they did lose, but dude, they played an overtime game, 127-120, and neither team had double-digit turnovers. That was high-end basketball. And for you to be there, when Jaylen Brown hits that three, and you tweeted out, like, this place is crazy.
It was loud, yeah.
And then Ant comes down and answers it. Jim, Pete, and Grady, the homies, like, I think Jim, I'm sorry, but I think Jim yelled, shut up, when Ant hit the three. Like, he was so into it. They have great seats right at center court, too, so it was just a back-and-forth duel that the Celtics ended up getting the better of, but that's one of those games you just go back and watch, and, like, that had an NBA, and it's so weird, right, because the Celtics are favorites to come out of the East. They've been there before. They've done this. But to watch a Celtics-Timberwolves game in January and be like, that's kind of like a finals preview. Mm-hmm. That was grade A hoops. Chef's kiss.
All right. We've been kind.
Okay, let's get into it.
They blew the game. Ant
100%. 100%.
Ant blew the game.
22-year-old Anthony Edwards.
Yes,
blew the game.
Absolutely. And that's my next bullet point right here. He absolutely won them the game against Boston at Target Center on November 6th. The kid blew him the game because he doesn't understand it yet. He's said repeatedly over the past 2.5 weeks that he needs to be aggressive and attack even through double teams. And Boston said, yes, please. And he did that, and he turned the ball over 4 times. At the end of the game, you said they had 10 total turnovers. That was part of the reason why they were in this game in the first place, and they were able to even be there. And Ant was able to be there. Ant was awesome through the first 3.5 quarters of this game. He wasn't turning the ball over. He wasn't dribbling into a crowd. He wasn't doing all the things that he's been doing lately to be problematic from a effectiveness standpoint from the team, because he's just turning it over like crazy. And he did it at the end of the game. And I think it's because he's 22. And I think it's because he's supremely talented. And it makes him special, that belief that he has in himself. But it is a double-edged sword. And it cost the team in this game. It wasn't just the turnovers. What was he doing on the Derek White rebound? I mean, he needs, and he will. He very, very likely will. But he's 22 years old, and that's the difference between him and Jason Tatum right now. And Jason Tatum's older than him, and Jason Tatum has grown. But Ant can go both ways with this, and he cost him. He cost him this one at the end.
There is such poetry and irony in watching last night's game, and the two players. We got to get into Carl, by the way, because he was awesome. But there's two players that really let you down without Rudy Gobert on the court and without Mike Conley on the court. Mike Conley, the designated driver for this team. And that was Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards, 22 and 23.
For sure.
And the irony and the poetry is that they're going up against the two guys that the more and more we get into this, it's a pretty fair comp in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Like two elite wings. I mean, Jaylen Brown was so good last night. And, when Jason Tatum was 22, the Celtics were 36 and 36 during, I think it was the COVID year or whatever. So you're seeing Ant and Jaden real lumps. That sixth foul that Jaden had was after Ant had a really bad turnover, kind of a jump pass, gets in the air, doesn't have anywhere to go, tries to throw it. Drew Holiday is just super effective at getting in those passing lanes. And then Jaden has that foul. But I think age is not an excuse. Age is a statistic. When you do demographics, age is a statistic. Anthony Edwards is 3.5 years removed from playing the Citadel. He doesn't have a lot of big game reps. So I know people don't like that this team is young thing. Last night without Mike and Rudy, their average age was 27 years old, 26 years old. They are kind of young, but it's more of even Carl's in this at 28. They're inexperienced. And last night, if you take nothing else, a January game like that was big because those are real reps, man. That's how you get officiated come April and May and June. That's how loud these arenas get. That's how late game execution looks from a Boston standpoint. And it's those little things. Like you said, it's not just missing shots. Ant missed and did this dumb stuff last night that if you go back and watch that first Celtics game was pretty much some of the same stuff he was doing, right? Those same kind of kill shot threes, taking on double teams. So it didn't work for them last night. They choke away the game. Again, they choke away the game.
No. Hold on. There's a distinction to be made. They were bringing doubles without a ball screen on Ant.
Oh, yeah,
That is a situation in which, I'm kind of with the idea that if they're running pick and roll and they're playing up in coverage, right? They're doing the high wall. They're playing up to touch, whatever. Maybe sometimes if you are Luka Doncic, James Harden, Anthony Edwards even, maybe you do try and split that. But when you have the ball 35 feet from the basket, above the break on the left side, and Al Horford just decides to come up and start double teaming you that far away from the basket, that is a situation in which you have to pass. You have to, and he did a few times. It just gets this clock going in his head of okay, but I need to go here. I need to score here. I need to do that. And that's a product of being 22 for sure. The question is, when does that stuff, register? And I'm not saying he's necessarily behind the learning curve on that or anything, but the important thing for Ant is whatever that amount of time is the shorter the better, obviously, right? Some guys, it's, maybe it's not till they're 25, 26. Can Ant do it by the end of the season? Can Ant do it by next year? That's going to be the difference. And particularly with the team that is as in as they are now, answering that question and Ant's ability to be the superstar that he was and is when he's being defended, normally throughout the game. Can he do that? And can he do this at the end of the game when teams are going to choose to say, let anyone else on this team beat us? That's what's going to happen because they don't have another isolation option there. Carl doesn't do that. Carl's another great option on this team, but they're going to try and take away Ant, and Ant's going to need to come to grips with that and realize that he's going to have to get off of it and get back to it or whatever it is. because that was costly, even though he was the one who got them there. Absolutely.
Okay, so to your point,
actually, hold on. Let me play the Finch Ant learning curve.
Let's bring in Chris Finch now for his opinion.
Here you go.
Is this maybe another step for him to kind of mature in these moments, or do this on a consistent basis?
Oh, for sure. This is all part of the growth curve, all part of learning. It's not, I think you can't be wired to try to score in these moments. You got to be wired to make the right play. They're going to load up against you. You can't bleed the clock unnecessarily, because when they do come and trap you, we need time at the end of it to move it. These are all things that we're harping on. And the turnovers, the passing, we got to clean up the passing. Absolutely have to clean up the passing.
All right, sorry, I wanted to play that.
I was kind of hoping he would also add in that Ant's the face of the league in the All-Star, or in a multi-time All-Star, like Darko did for the Raptors. Anyway, when you were saying earlier before for the Finch quote about like growth and how quick can he do it, did you think it was a sign of growth and maturity that he went to the basket at the end of regulation? Instead of trying to, you know what I mean? Like, in terms of, because we say all these things and we're like, okay, he didn't do that, he didn't do that.
And
he needs
the
to get better.
End of the first half was awesome too. He made that one really difficult shot, and they get that stealing as the run out dunk. Don't
get me started on that. We can talk about that later. But I mean, at the end of the game,
I'm not saying Ant had a bad game. I'm
saying that the officials again had a terrible game, and I'm sure that'll rile people up. But my God, like just what later. But for Ant in that last, I think there's like a 2-second differential on the shot clock and game clock. And I don't think they threw a double at him that time. But, instead of taking that long step back three or some high dribble, long two, he did go to the rim, get that fall, and get 2 free throws that he hit both of them. So as we talk about, like, is he learning anything? Is he how fast can he rapidly mature even though he's 22? I just think last night I take away that it's how many big spots. And I'm not talking like he hit a big 3 against the Raptors at home in December. Like, how many big spots has he been in? And that's kind of like you said double-edged sword. That's kind of part of the debate about the Rudy Gobert trade, right? Is that this timeline idea of you're forcing him to just you're not at your peak maturity. You're not in your...
Well, you're believing that he will get there.
Right,
you make the Rudy Gobert trade, you are believing that Ant can get to the point by the time he's, 22 or almost 23, right? To be able to do these things and be able to process these things, which are extremely difficult to do, but to make the Gobert trade and be as in as they are, that is a belief by Tim Connolly and Chris Finch that Ant can do this. And who am I to say? They know him way better than I do, right? We are seeing progression from Anthony Edwards, absolutely. Since they made that trade, in many elements of his game and many maturity elements of his game. This one, not so much, or not yet, right? And again, it's when do you see it? We actually, when we have seen it, the Warriors game, right? The kick out to Conley in the corner. It's reading the game, but reading the game while trusting your teammates, and that is what to me vacillates for Ant.
When Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was 22, his team went 22-50. And I know some people don't care about that stuff, but I keep coming back to it.
I don't care about that, man.
But
what are we doing? What are you doing? What, like, why? This doesn't need to all be
how many?
exclusive.
So last night, okay, here's why it matters. Last night, Anthony Edwards became, I think, the first player, or the third youngest player, let me find this NBA stat, the sixth player to record 5,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 1,000 assists at age 22 or younger. He's the third youngest. LeBron, Luka, Ant, Kobe, Tracy McGrady, Giannis. Go look at all those guys when they were 22 and their records. And what I'm trying to say is that awesome. The reps... No, it's not about being awesome. It's not about statistics. It's about he is just being forced, like someone who was left as an orphan at 9, to just physically grow up and mentally mature at a more rapid pace. So I'm not trying to compare the 26-11 Timberwolves to the 22-50 Thunder. But at 22, Shai just wasn't getting a lot of these reps. What's the biggest moment he's been in? For Ant, last night was a big rep. And guess what?
Absolutely.
He failed. He failed at the end. They had 9 turnovers, not 10. He had 5 of them. Okay, so he had more than 50% of this team's turnovers. And he didn't have, his whole career in the NBA, he has had a buddy next to him. Ricky Rubio, Patrick Beverly, D'Angelo Russell, Mike Conley, someone that says you're a lead, you're an RB1, but I'm the quarterback and I'm going to tell you to go right or left here on this run play. He didn't have that last night, and he was out there in the Wildcat
and that's
formation
what we're
by
talking
himself.
about. It's like when is it that Ant will be able to do that without the running mate next to him? And I'm not even saying that I would expect that at 22, because Shea's one of the best players in the league, and you're right, he wasn't able to do that, and Ant probably is better than Shea was at 22. The circumstance is this team is in a situation to achieve their stated goals, the goals
for sure.
their expectations and what they want to do. They need Ant to not be this. And this was not an isolated incident. It's been a thing. It's been a pattern. And it has been a pattern that Ant himself repeatedly after games is saying, I'm going to do this. While his coach, I'm at all these media interviews. It's weird. Finch says, do not do this. We go into the locker room and Ant says, I'm going to do more of this. And those dudes have a great relationship together. But that stuff is not hitting in the game when Ant is out there and the juices are flowing and they're rolling. And maybe that is because he's 22. It probably is because he's 22. It just has to be a shift that happens in the rest of the season, given what the stakes are of this team and the circumstance that Chris Finch and Tim Connelly put this team in. I don't mean that as a bad thing. It's just a reality of the situation here. And to maximize what the situation that you chose, Ant needs to be able to do these things. And for him to do that, he needs to be a listener. That has to happen. And I think Finch will be patient with him to do that. But if it doesn't happen, it's going to be problematic, and it's going to cost him in the playoffs.
Yep, and no pushback. That was fun. We should do that more often.
You want to talk about English muffins?
Well, to close on that on that thing, because again, you are at all these games. You have been to more games than damn near anyone. Did he ever make that Golden State drive, pull up, kick to the corner to Mike Conley pass? Did he make it in year 1, 2, or 3?
No. And he's absolutely getting better. And I'm sorry if it's coming off that I'm not saying there's
no, it's not.
Absolutely been more than incremental improvement in these things, which should lead us to believe that this is going to incrementally continue to improve. I am just interested by what the growth rate of that incremental improvement is going to be.
For sure. And all I'm saying is that when you sign up for a marathon, you usually get photos at the beginning, when you start the race, and at the end, when you end the race. And I'm trying to say we should take a second and be where your feet are and be like, maybe we're in the middle of this story, this next Netflix documentary that you're seeing like, okay, he took a step forward in Golden State and a step backwards in Boston, but he was taking no steps last year or the year before. And let's talk about English muffins.
Today's show is brought to you by Stone and Skillet. I was actually thinking about this. So, when I'm
timely,
I've been on the road. Like, I'm a big breakfast person. And so I'm like, I've had Starbucks like breakfast like 3 times in the past 5 days. Which, just like as an aside, like what is Starbucks? Why is Starbucks food so bad? Why is Starbucks food so bad? It's like I need something.
There's an argument to be made that Starbucks coffee is bad too. Like it's just consistent, it's always there for you, but it's like the Timberwolves throughout the years. It's always there for you, but I don't know if it's actually any good.
Yeah, their food is like Brandon Rush or something. But I was actually thinking about this when I was there. I am like, I ate this breakfast sandwich and oatmeal and like one of those iced lemon loaves at Starbucks, and I'm like, I am still hungry. And when I have these Stone and Skillet English muffins at home, and when I'm like scrambling to like eat something before I get on the podcast in the morning, like I've had like literally just an English muffin with like butter on it, and I am like, okay, like I am full until lunch or whatever it is. I've always been a huge fan of English muffins in general, and Stone and Skillet like hit me up to do this sponsorship, and I was like, I actually already have your English muffins. This is crazy. Yes, I will do that. I will be a champion of English muffins, stoneandskillet.com. It's up on the screen here. They're handmade English muffins in Boston, actually, non-GMO certified, and they are dense. 6 grams of protein in them. We don't have to do a super long run on this, but I know they sent you some too.
I ended dry January on January 6th. Shout out to me for making it 5 days. And then January 7th, spoiler alert, I was pretty hungover, and I ate 3 of these, and it totally brought me back to life. And truly, 3, yeah. I mean, that's like 1,600,000 carbs. But no, again, we always say this, like, we appreciate those that support us. We ask you in turn to support them, but it's also like, I'm not going to, Ritz crackers are never going to sponsor us because I think they taste like garbage. These are delicious. I eat one basically every day. I'm going to need to get more. If you've tried by the way, we did a read for this last week. What was the promo code again?
Oh yeah. It's stoneandskillet.com.
Okay.
And if you want to order directly to your home, the promo code is Dane, and that gets 20% off if you order online. They didn't have that promo code working.
Yeah, that's on us.
Immediately when we did the read last time, but it is up now, 20% off at stoneandskillet.com. Promo code Dane if you want to support them, support the show there as well. Or also, it's in Whole Foods.
Yeah,
you can't go up to the counter and say promo code Dane. They're not going to give you.
Try it though. It though. Make
Film
a TikTok.
yourself doing that. That would be a TikTok. But yeah, we just really, I just legitimately really enjoy these English muffins.
When I said finals preview, right? When the Celtics will probably have home court, so game 2, Celtics Wolves in June, we might just record from the Stone and Skillet production factory.
Yeah, let's do it. Live show. Coming at you live from
me dressed as an English muffin.
Yeah. Anyways, that's stoneandskillet.com. Promo code Dane for 20% off. This company has a cool story of 3 brothers who started this company and grew it into something big out here in Boston, and it's now spreading across the country. So it's stoneandskillet.com, or you can go to Whole Foods. All right, Kyle. Let's continue on here with this game. We talked about Ant. We talked about the late game execution. Like I said, when I was in there doing the post game, questions to Finch and everybody else, I was like, because everyone else is talking about the late game execution, I'm like, well, I want to hear a little bit about like the first 48 minutes, because I sure as hell didn't expect what happened in the first 48 minutes for Nickeil Alexander-Walker to do what he did, for Ant to be as great as he was in that game, given the Boston matchup, Nas, all of that, everyone who delivered and had them in a position to have a lead late in this game. So let's talk about it, even though they weren't. What stood out positively to you to even have the Wolves put themselves in this position?
I've waited my whole life for my favorite team to have the best defense in the league. So the Minnesota Timberwolves have the best defense in the league, and a lot of that is credited to Rudy Gobert, probably a Hall of Fame center when it's all said and done, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and Mike Conley. But I watched 53 minutes of basketball last night, and a little part of me was like, man, I miss Carl at center. Like, that was fun. Those 5 turnovers that Ant had, right? The rest of the team, no one had more than 1. I mean, it was just, again, if you take the names off the jersey, it was just real high-level basketball and real high-level shot making. I mean, Nas Reed, 7 for 15, 19 points off the bench, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. It was basketball porn. It was just up and down and one block here, one big shot here. But they just were, they were just so connected and so galvanized. I thought they only really played a 7-man rotation.
Yeah.
Troy Brown Jr. played 8 minutes. I mean, that last night, if nothing else, put an end to any of my, like, all right, man, the young guys are just never going to play. And that's
right.
That's fine.
When Cat falls out and Jordan McLaughlin checked into the game.
I was just like, there's no victory cigars there tonight.
Leonard Miller's not playing this year.
The Summer League is January 7th through the 14th. We'll see those guys then.
June.
Until then, that's it. But even Troy Brown Jr. came in. I think it was 1 for 3, missed 2 threes. But I like the way he moves. And again, we're not going to get into rotation stuff today, but yeah, they might just not have a chance. Like Finch might just lean into the 7 or 8 guys that he has, and that's your playoff rotation. Then there will be no trade, and they'll get a buyout guy. But to that first, what did you say, 45 minutes? was just real high-level basketball. And I kept thinking, I put in my notes, you had we have meat on the bone this year, right? And we have weirdest team ever. But one of your famous catchphrases is like letting go of the rope. They never really let go of the rope last night. Like I think the Celtics' biggest lead might have been 7 or 8 points throughout that whole thing. And to bring it all the way back to 30 minutes ago, I just watched that game. Not the result, but that game. And I was just really proud because, again, to your point, the Delta plane landed at 110, right? Like they just went to the arena. Like they didn't have any of that same routine. And they could have for one time, like the Suns game, they could have just been like, we've done what we're supposed to do. Just trying to get home. And the locker room stuff at the end of the game when they're like, damn, like we should have won that game. You said it to me before we got on, right? None of those guys were really complaining about their situation. They were just solely focused on we kind of dropped that one.
Yeah, you're talking about the last night's game?
Yeah.
No, yeah, there was no excuse making.
No one said like, well, we landed at 1, man. They're all like, dude, we should have made that extra pass, or we should have, not taken that shot.
Finch blew off the question. He's like, no, it was fine. After the game, if fatigue played a role in it. I mean, fatigue did play a role in it. They just weren't.
But that's what made it
excuses.
more impressive, right? That they were up 7 with 2:11, and then sleepless nights occurred, and one of the worst official calls of all time happened. And I'm not even like pro Homer Timberwolves guy. It's just, I don't know if you want to even get into it. It's just that review, the ball, Drew Holiday strips Ant. It's 2:11 on the clock. The Wolves have gotten an offensive rebound. They're up 7. Carl kicks it out to Ant. Ant goes straight to the basket. I thought he might try to run some clock, but he had no one on him. So it's like, well, I have a clear lane to the basket. But that review was weird. Save me from that was a foul on the Keel thing, on the offensive foul. And if you think it was, that's fine. But you tweeted out a clip 2 possessions later where Tatum has the exact same kind of arm bar to get off him to hit a jump shot. Just one weird call after another. And then again, that factors into when weird calls happen and I'm at home flustered. This inexperience and this youth, they don't really handle it well either. So I don't know if you have anything on, not that the officials had really they lost because of the officials. I never believe that stuff. But those 2 calls back to back were not helpful.
So just in the locker room last night, and again, on the record, no excuses were made by Finch or really any of the players that we talked to. Ant didn't talk to the media afterwards, and that was but he said, he goes, I don't want to talk because I'm going to get fined because I'm going to talk about the officials. So Ant, and like you said, there was that play, and he's been frustrated with the officiating recently. That's why I guess he didn't want to do it. He had a problem with the officials, but broadly throughout the roster, nobody was, complaining about fatigue or the officials or anything. And that's because they don't have to. We saw it, and none of them said they were tired. That locker room was as tired of a locker room as the only other time I put down in my notes, because I was just standing in there. I'm like, this is what I wrote down. Kyle laying on carpet floor. Lot of ice on everyone. Rudy sitting at the protein shake table eating. Sitting on one of those little chairs you would play piano on. Ant seemed to have a cold. This reminds me of the Lakers game at Staples. Ant was definitely upset about officiating. Didn't talk to media, probably because of
We need to get you a Substack, and you just put your notes in there for the game.
Well, it's you've been in there after a loss, right?
Yeah.
Where it's it's after a win, which has been pretty much all the game. It's chatter, they're eager to chit chat with us, but it's a loss. I'm gonna go hide by the Gatorade machine, and I don't want to get in your space. I don't want to be there. I feel honestly, part of me feels weird about even being there, but I got to go do the interview.
Post game locker rooms after a loss. To those who don't put their real name on their Twitter account that say, "Why didn't you ask this player about this, buddy?" Be in a locker room with a shirtless Rudy Gobert who's 7'3" and be like, "Hey, Rudy, why'd you clank those 2 free throws, you bum?" Good luck with that energy, okay? Because you're probably gonna get sideswiped. But no, it's cool that you said that because you didn't get any of that from watching the game, right? You don't get any sort of, there wasn't an IV in Ant's arm, so you didn't really know that they were exhausted. So for you to let us know, thanks for traveling.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
On the Ant free throw thing, quick, or just on since he didn't talk, and we're not going to talk about that because he didn't want to get fined. like when you said Ant didn't want to talk to the media because he didn't want to complain about the officials, I am just curious
That's
because
what he said.
I don't love skipping a sporting event and just looking at the box score and be like, well, I probably know everything about that game. But I did watch last night's game in its entirety twice, and I'm just curious on your opinion. The three best players probably on the floor were Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Edwards. Two of those guys shot 13 free throws, and Ant shot 4. So I'm just curious. Again, my dad will not allow me to ever blame the loss directly on officiating. But, like, I kind of thought he had a point. It wasn't like he wasn't attacking just like Tatum or Brown was. It wasn't like he wasn't getting defended by really pesky guys like Drew Holiday or, Derek White. So
okay, can I just say, like,
I'm just asking.
There's advantages to being there at the stadium and, like, whatever, like, I'm in the locker room or whatever, but I'm not watching the game. I don't have, like, a monitor there.
Yep.
You've done that. Like,
you don't get replays.
So it's like, I would maybe think that if I haven't, like, rewatched it or anything yet. So even the Drew Holiday play, I'm not trying to, like, skip over that. I don't know. Like, I saw it flash up on the Jumbotron a couple times as I was, like, frantically making notes, So I don't know. You have that perspective better than me. Like, they probably did. Yeah, they're the Timberwolves. They're playing the Celtics. And also, like, I mean, it's stupid. Like, I don't know why this is a thing, but, like, yeah, Darko, the league favors the Lakers.
Oh, dude,
I mean, like,
quick aside, just full transparency. Some people are going to get to know me a little better. I watched that game with an edible, and that was true. I was texting Jack Borman, that was one of the most egregious. I mean, that was made me kind of question everything I believe in, because he was so right to go on that rant. That's not what happened in Wolves Celtics, by the way, but the Raptors were just. A higher power saw that the Lakers were falling to 11th in the Western Conference standings and made a call. That was about as... I don't want to say the R word, but I'm just asking last night again because that's become a thing too. Like, Ant post-game, you're always on top of it, that he's saying things. The funny quotes are kind of gone, right? Like, now you're starting to get an idea of what's going on in his head, and he, after losses, thinks, I can just do this by myself. I can fix this. I can shoot our team out of it. And now in games like last night where he's not getting the whistle, I'm just maybe when you watch it again and maybe when you do pods next week, you'll have a different opinion. But I struggled to see last night how two players on the other team could have 9 and 10 more free throw attempts when they were being guarded and attacking in very similar ways to what Ant was doing.
No, I will say, again, just from the perspective I had at the game, the thing I was putting down in my notes was the fouls Jaden got called for.
Yep. Oh, we should talk about him for an hour.
That was super, that was super costly, and I didn't, to my eye test, agree with, the majority of them. And he was, he's so huge to stopping Tatum. Obviously, like, the alternative, right? Like, Naz Reid gets switched on to Jason Tatum when they're up by 2 with 1 minute and 33 seconds left in the game, and Naz commits a foul up 30 feet from the basket. And Naz copped to it after the game. It's like, it was a huge mistake. I need to learn time and circumstance more and more. But Jaden McDaniels was out of the game at that point, I believe. And you need Jaden McDaniels to guard Jason Tatum. And also, you need Jaden McDaniels on this team for this season to be good and make a run and go to the Western Conference Finals. So I daily am getting emails about this contract and everything. And can I just say one thing about it? Like, Jaden, yes, sure, Jaden is not having the season I thought he would have. But to the contract point, he makes $4 million this season. So, yes, he probably needs to play better than he has in this 30 games thus far he's played this season, where he's been injured in and out throughout the time, to quote-unquote be meeting the value of that contract in a year when the contract starts. But he even is, because this team, who's going to guard Paolo Banchero? Who's going to guard Paolo Banchero in that Magic game? What happened?
24 hours removed from that.
What happened when the Wolves tried to guard Julius Randle with Cat? What happened when the Wolves tried to guard Zion Williamson with Ant? Nobody else in this team can do it. And yes, Jaden has a foul trouble problem. He does. He needs to get better about that. He needs to get better at the defensive rebounding. He messed up the Derek White rebound more than anyone else did. But you guys, we can't say you need to trade a player because they're having a bad stretch. He's the young part of your core. He's the player that Chris Finch, the like most chill, objective coach in the league, compared to Scottie Pippen as a rookie. Like, stop. Just stop, or just please don't send it to me.
That's at Dane Moore NBA on Twitter.
You can send it to me on Twitter because I'm not going to check there, but please stop emailing me. That's what
Jaden McDaniels makes less money this season than his brother Jalen McDaniels that half of us don't know where he plays. It's the Raptors. Jaden McDaniels makes less money than everyone's least favorite Timberwolf, Shake Milton. Okay? And this pod, to sum it up, is the growing pains, young kids making mistakes pod, right? We did 30 minutes on Ant. The Jaden stuff. We have gone over this. He is my favorite player. I have a level of respect for him simply because, yes, he punched a wall, but he's not a malcontent. He gets asked to do some of the shittiest things that a coach can ask a player without much reward. What did Finch say 48 hours ago? The team doesn't pass him the basketball. Like, that would help, right? And last night, his 6th foul was atrocious. Not because the officials were atrocious. No, they were right. Ant makes that live ball, jumps in the air, doesn't have anywhere to go, turnover, throws it to Jaden in the corner. Tatum is 7'4", steals it, and then Jaden's first reaction, and he does it all the time, because I have a Jaden cam, like ESPN, Jaden immediately turned and like kind of grabbed Tatum. So now you have fouled out, it's a transition take foul. Like, that's the type of stuff, as much as we want to be like, yeah, Ant had the pass to Mike against Golden State, Gold Star. Ant had 5 turnovers last night down. That was one of the down ones for Jaden, right? Jaden McDaniels finished last night with 5 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. I kind of thought he was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
the bad Jaden's, like, the worst Jaden games were previously. Yeah, you can't just look at the box score with Jaden.
But what did he do? What did he do? Not even 24 hours. What did he do 17 hours ago against one of the most rising, up-and-coming Washington's own Paolo Banchero? He locked his ass down. And yes, I had to get that off my chest too, because I've gotten so many, he's not living up to the value of his contract. He's making like the GDP of Guam compared to like a powerful country. Like, he needs to he had that 3 where he kind of got a grenade. I don't know if you remember this play, but I think Ant gave him a grenade with like 2 seconds left.
A step back. Yeah.
And Jaden like airballed the shot. He does need to get better. I always think when a young player gets injured early in the season, that just because now they're playing, we all like, okay, cool, video games, he's back. My video game character's back. It's like, is he though? Like, I don't know. Maybe he's still just not trusting the ankle, or maybe he's starting to think like, yo, I got paid, right? Like, Naz Reid got paid this summer and has embraced it and become even better. And maybe Jaden's a little nervous. Like, the first 3 years for Jaden McDaniels here, he was the 28th overall pick. Okay, so again, this isn't the 7th pick overall in the draft. Everything's been pretty chill and expectations have been low, and he's been a cool cucumber and he never gets technicals. Now expectations are heightened. He's got a lot of money coming his way. People are saying like, hey man, you got to do the Mikal Bridges thing. You got to take that leap. You got to give us 14-8, 14-9. But I just watch him play defense. And for the people that are like, oh, tired of Jaden putting in, did you see, not production, not stats, did you look at Jason Tatum's eyes when Nickeil Alexander-Walker guarded him? Yeah. I mean, that was like you seeing your soulmate. He was like, I'm gonna destroy you. Naz Reid, not fast enough to stay in front of Tatum. So as soon as Jaden went out, falling out on his own accord, his mistake, negative gold star for him. That was a bad Jaden game. That was it. The end of the game was when Jaden fouled out because they have no one else to go at him. I guess you can throw Kyle in there. There's a whole Kyle Anderson discussion last night where that game starts with about as close to a playoff.
Hold on.
Okay.
We can't get into Kyle Anderson. Let's.
But the Jaden stuff is it's real tough right now because all of a sudden you're seeing. I don't get it. Like, I don't get being poor my whole life and now I have a little money and I'm gonna one day just start complaining again. Like, that man's making $3 million to guard the opponent's best player on night in and night out basis, and that opponent might be Luka on Monday, Julius Randle on Tuesday, Paolo Banchero on Wednesday. That's tough, man. And this team doesn't have a lot of other guys that can do it. And if you want Ant to do it, good luck trying to get 30.
And the expectation is that he continues to get better, significantly better. Jaden McDaniels. That is the expectation.
Yep, just like Ant.
But that doesn't, because he isn't at that level, that he hasn't realized his full Mikal Bridges while still on his rookie contract. You know what? That doesn't make the contract extension a bad contract extension. And if you think it does, you probably don't know ball. That's just probably, you don't know how to watch NBA defense. I don't know.
I think
what the other.
I think he came into the season playing 202 regular season games. Every one of those games, you probably have a positive thought about Jaden McDaniels. In those first 202 games, he's had 8 or 9 stinkers this year. And to see the pendulum switch that far on a guy that, again, you just simply need. He might never be the 15-10 guy. But, man, his defense, in and of itself, that is not a stat. That's not something. It's all eye test. Is he making positive plays on defense? He's always going to have 4 fouls. As long as he has breath in his lungs, he's just going to get 4 fouls because he has to go up with all the bullshit that Luka does, that Harden does, that Tatum does. But it's those 2 other fouls that there are no excuses for. Yep. And that's the Jaden thing. You can't punch a wall. You can't grab a guy in transition. You can't let yourself revert back. I watched it in person. You can't revert back to Washington, Jaden McDaniels, because that's why you fell so far in the draft and made, that's why you're making less than your brother this year, is because you had an attitude problem at Washington and you slid in the draft. You earned this massive contract extension because you went to a more mature level of play, and that's where he has to go to. He has to get better just like Ant does.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Let's get into this one, Kyle. We're just talking so much. I can't do segues. We need to go. PrizePicks.com or the Prize Picks app. Please stop talking, Kyle. Just kidding. You have some Prize Picks for us for NFL Sunday. I texted you this morning and I started looking at this. I was like, I don't know what to do for our Prize Picks segment. Because I haven't paid any attention to the NFL this week. What do you have quickly?
Really good slate. Obviously, this is a huge weekend in the NFL. It's wild card weekend. There's more games. But yeah, just kind of go through, figure out if you're using Prize Picks this week, who do I think is going to win, and then start to kind of boil down, like, how would the game script go? I think the Chiefs at home, it's going to be cold against the Dolphins team that they might be able to kind of beat up and be physical with. Isaiah Pacheco over 62.5 rushing yards. Some of these numbers might have gone up a little bit, but yeah, Pacheco's now he's at 65.5. I still like that. They're going to lean into him.
Or you can demon mode him for 85.5 here.
Yeah, if you think and the demon stuff too just adds kind of a little extra spice to your bet, adds a little more possible payout. So I like him. And then I'm so hyped for Rams-Lions. Stafford's return to Detroit. So I just took Cooper Kupp over 70.5 receiving yards. I think that game is going to be a shootout indoors on turf. And then just give me Amon-Ra St. Brown over 87.5 receiving yards. So Kupp and Brown over. Maybe you want to put Puka in there instead of Kupp. But just try to figure out, like, these games. Who do you want to win? Who do you think's going to win? And then kind of go in reverse. And, if you think a high-scoring game, go grab some touchdown scores. In that column as well, you get the little red demon guy and increase your odds a little bit. So if you're new to Prize Picks or you want to try it out, this is the weekend to do it. You can parlay football picks with basketball picks. The Wolves have a game on Friday. Throw some in there. Do a football game on Saturday. It's really cool, and the promo code you have is great because it's $100 free. So basically, match your deposit.
Yep. If you haven't done it, this might be a time, as maybe your fantasy season's over. It's the playoffs. They want the Vikings aren't in it, right? Like, you want something to do. PrizePicks.com, Prize Picks app, and if you do sign up using the promo code Dane, you will get a $100 sign-up bonus. And also, Kyle, we have 2 tickets to give away for Friday's game against the Blazers at Target Center. If you're listening to this on Thursday or early on Friday morning, either sign up for Patreon at patreon.com/DaneMooreNBA and send us a message that you are available, or if you already are a subscriber, send us a message that you are available for that game. And some point on Friday late morning, we will randomly select a winner and send you to the game against the Blazers on Friday. They're good seats. It's expensive to go to Timberwolves games. It's only about to get more expensive in the next couple of years. Yeah, we're lucky to have these tickets from
sure.
the Genesis company, a sponsor of the show. So hit us up on Patreon and help us out over there. If you do want to, if you can't support other sponsors directly and want to help us,
and it does help the pod. Dane's
Yeah.
literally recording this from some hotel room or a Dunkin' Donuts in Boston. You don't have a travel budget. It's all a little behind the scenes. Like Dane pays for his own travel. He pays to get everywhere. So if you enjoy the pod, if you enjoy us yelling at each other and Dane telling me to shut up, $5 Patreon, get tickets to a game. But it's also a nice way to, we want to keep growing this thing. The more times you're on the road, the better, in my opinion. Get better quotes, get better access. How would I have known that Rudy Gobert was, sipping Gatorade by the water cooler and Kyle Anderson was laying on the floor? So Patreon, support us.
It was so funny, dude. It was so funny. Rudy,
know.
So that table, like in the middle where they have like
all the snacks, just tons of gummy bears,
electrolytes, like all that sort of stuff. And I walk in there, and the first thing I have to do is like make sure I don't. Well, one, I didn't. They have a carpet floor in there, which is so Kyle Anderson is just laying on the carpet floor, and I had to like step to avoid him there. And I'm just, you walk into that locker room, you're like, I don't know what this is gonna be like. And gigantic Rudy is just like sitting there eating a pork chop on this little tiny chair. Ant's pissed. Leonard Miller's shaking his hair off like a dog, trying off.
I thought they left Lenny at Disney World. I didn't know he made the trip.
No, I think they had everybody there.
I just remember watching last year going to the locker room, and it was always like these guys exhausted and stuff and shirtless and sweating and frustrated, and then like Nate Knight would just be eating like 6 packs of fruit snacks.
Did I tell you I saw Nate Knight at the airport yesterday?
No, let's do travel blog here.
Oh
quick.
My god! So I took like a super early flight. It was to Dallas, I think. So I'm like getting off the plane. I like fell asleep on the plane, and I'm literally walking off the getting off the plane where you're like
the tarmac,
entering the air, the tarmac. That's the word. And the very first person I see in Dallas is Nate Knight, and he's like, "Yo, what's up?" And I'm like, "Am I still asleep?" But that was funny.
You just keep seeing these weird centers at the airport. Yeah. Like I'll never forget the Walker Kessler story where you like gave him a hug or whatever and said goodbye, Walker.
Give him a hug. We went through security together the day after he got traded. That was weird. That was random. That was Yep.
Kyle Anderson.
Yeah, let's talk about Kyle Anderson. Sorry. I mean, he played great that game, and I can't. He's just better with one big man.
Yeah. Let me start, and then I'll rally you up, and then you can actually provide real analysis. The first 4 or 5 minutes were frightening. Kyle starts at the 4, right? Because Rudy's out, so it's a Kyle, Carl, 4-5 front court.
Yeah, we got to talk about Cat too. Let's put
we will. We got lots of time. My meeting's not till 9. Kyle starts in the first 4 or 5 minutes. It was that guy at pickup that is a bum, and no one even worries about him on the court. And it sucks because Kyle's inability to shoot, which we'll never really know why. I always think it's tied to the eye thing. Who knows? But just his inability to threaten from...
You know what it is, dude? It's his shooting mechanics. That's what it is. He's always been a bad shooter. He hit him last year. That's just... They knew that. They didn't sign Kyle Anderson.
Maybe it's my eyes that don't figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they were guarding him, and I was messaging with Jake Painting during the game. It's like, this is my fear. It's not that Kyle Anderson is the problem. I keep going back to this. And when he's thrown, we are a month away. We're not going to do any of this today, but we are a month away today from the NBA trade deadline. And the reason I float his name or think about his name isn't because he's the problem or he's this anchor that's bringing the team down. It's simply the contract. He's an expiring. Yeah. You got to have some money going out to get some money coming in for a valuable player. Otherwise, if you just swap Shake Milton for something, you're not going to get much. So I was pretty nervous. I was like, this doesn't work. And then Kyle just read the tweets or whatever and was awesome. He finished with 17 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Guess how many turnovers? 0. Okay? Yeah, he was minus 11. Everyone in the starting lineup was, negative. 3 for 4 from the free throw line, 7 for 12. And he was aggressive. And I think he knows, right? You talk about this with Britt. Like, he knows he needs to be more aggressive. He can't get by playing 22 minutes in a fully healthy rotation and not being some sort of a threat. So, yeah, a lot of it now is push shots. Every time it goes in from 8 to 10 to 12 feet, you love it. Every time it doesn't, you want to trade him. I don't have any real analysis other than it's a conundrum because he does a lot of good stuff. He looks the best at the 4, right? This team pigeonholes him into the 3, and it doesn't
work. You got
work.
to play 5 out, man.
Yep.
If Kyle Anderson's on the floor, you got to play 5 out. Like,
him and Carl look so good together. But
it's like even Carl needs to be thinking, because this team doesn't call plays; they just decide what to do when
all
they're
vibes.
playing. Seriously, like so.
Yep.
So that's one of my biggest problems with flow versus the volume of play calling stuff is these players, at least not yet, pick up on stuff. I'm not saying I could or anything, but it is not fast, right? Of recognizing who's on the floor around them and what they should be doing. When what I hope, I'm sure will be their takeaway to some extent from rewatching this game is with the spread floor, intentionally positioning a spread floor around Kyle Anderson on the perimeter. Shocker, not as congested. And it worked. And it gives driving lanes more room, but it also gives Kyle Anderson more space to do his dipsy doodles around the paint. Like he's not that's his game. That's his offensive game. The little 5-6 foot shot. Like he could score that in a one-on-one situation. If you start having gap help and you start having another guy there to contest it, well, we've watched the last month. You know what that looks like. They don't go in, and it seems disastrous. And if he's going to play, it needs to be with more space. And I really hope there is the blind belief goes away. I don't get it, man. It can't.
It's one of the frustrating things about this team, right?
It can't be. You can't just believe. And credit to Jordan McLaughlin for hitting some threes. You can't just believe that Jordan McLaughlin's going to come into a game and be a proper shooter. You can't think that about Kyle Anderson. Rudy Gobert's never made one. You can't play all those guys together. You can't. And I know it was a limited roster last night, but what are we doing having Kyle Anderson, Shake Milton, and Jordan McLaughlin on the floor at the same time? Why? It doesn't have to be, and it feels just like whimsical. And I don't know, and I know it's just not my style. Like that's not how my brain works, and I know it is Mitch's. But I'm the type of person, and I'm not saying this would be right. I would be very structured in my rotations and the way I did it, and they just aren't, and they aren't as play call wise and everything else. And I'm not saying I don't think that's the right thing for this roster, full on structure of plays, of rotations, or whatever. But it's too far, man. It's like it worked for the Warriors because they were the Warriors and they were mature and they were older and they knew how to flow. They knew how to make things work with different groups. I don't get it. It's like I even in the Orlando game, the only time they lost that game was when they played Kyle Anderson, Jordan McLaughlin, and Rudy Gobert all together. Of course they did. I don't get it, man.
Well, it's funny too because I've grown to love Jordan McLaughlin just like everyone else because he's just an easy guy.
I love Kyle Anderson. I love Kyle Anderson as a power forward, or I actually think Kyle Anderson's a center. I love Kyle Anderson as a center / point guard. I love Jordan McLaughlin as a backup, second to third string point guard, and I really like Chris Finch as a coach. You put them all in the cup together, and it is not good. It's not good.
I'm glad you said the center thing because the more you watch
he's
him,
dollar store Jokic,
Kyle Anderson,
and
or he's
but I don't mean that as a discount.
Okay,
what is the word? Big to be pejorative.
Yeah,
he is.
He also might be the call map version of Draymond Green now, right? Because his defense is so good, and he does all the other Draymond stuff, but he shoots like he's got a backpack on. And going back to McLaughlin, he goes 2 for 3 from deep last night. If he doesn't hit those 2 threes, we probably aren't ripping Ant. Because none of it matters because they would have lost that game. So it's like you are not even playing with house money. You are, back to your mini rant, you are just playing with such fire that if those 2 threes, obviously Jordan had 3 attempts from deep last night, he hits 2 of them. If he doesn't hit any of them during the flow of the game and they don't get those 3 points and the Celtics go down and score, they probably lose by a dozen or 15. And I don't get it either. I had that in my notes as well. It's like how do you get away with playing so many non-shooters? Most teams now don't play 2 non-shooters in a 5-man lineup. And the
this
Wolves
team has to play two non. I get it. It's just
but
it
most
doesn't
teams
have to be three. Yeah.
But most teams don't even do two,
True.
and the
True.
Wolves are doing 3. And I just this is real hardcore. Run the ball and try to get 3 yards and get 3 yards. Now it's 3rd and 4. And we're going to try that is just you are decreasing your possibility and your chance of making any of this work. And I don't know if they're just trying to square peg round hole it for a couple more weeks to see if, again, to your, unicorns just sprout out of the earth and then they'll make a trade. But if that's like the most concerning, that is like my biggest gripe with Finch is that if they think this is going to work in April and May, there's no chance. And if you go back and watch those 4 or 5 minutes of the first quarter, the Celtics, who, despite having their own coaching issues at times, like people want to get on Missoula when things aren't going well, they scouted that so well, and they didn't even know he was on the court.
That's it. Like the book is out, right? Like you could just see that it's like in the scout. Do not guard Jordan McLaughlin. Stay off of Kyle Anderson until he's in the paint, and then freak out because he's good there. And then
it's funny too that the shooting we talk about that we space around those 3 non-shooters is like Nickeil
Alexander Walker and Naz Reid. Yeah.
Other guys. Yeah, it's just, and that's whatever that the kind of.
And I know we're like picking on a specific amount of time, and those are bad time. But it's also if you're playing some minutes in a game with 3 non-shooters, you're probably playing a lot of minutes with 2 non-shooters, which means you probably have an offense with real spacing issues, which means you probably have a below average offense, which they do, and that's end of story.
And again, though, but that's why.
Hold on. Another break.
Okay.
We'll be back to continue with Kyle. All right. We are back with Kyle Theige. Kyle, we got to talk about Cat. I will start by talking about Cat. You go in the locker room pregame, right? I've never seen that dude more wrapped up, like with his ankles wrapped, the KT tape. I think we talked about that last week too. He's 28 now, right? Like he's still young. I asked him about how he felt after the game. He's like, damn, I played 45 minutes. He goes, yeah, I'm still young. I'm all right. And like, he's not complaining about it, but as we talked about at the beginning, given this difficult month-long stretch, obviously, and then the travel stuff last night, that wears on your best players, your players who played the most minutes. Carl played 45 against Boston. I don't know what he probably play against Orlando, 35, 36, right? And had a really, really good game in that. Carl, like, can you go back in that game against Boston last night and look at some situations where he gets cooked on defense? Yeah, but you look at who he's guarding, and it's like it's on you're switching 5, and so he's guarding Jason Tatum or he's guarding Jaylen Brown, and like Carl's never going to be it. That's not going to happen. Like Carl's not going to be able to shut that water off, right? But I was impressed by him, obviously like delivering throughout that game, and I just think a low key thing about Carl this year, and it won't show up because it'll probably end up being one of his worst rebounding like per game seasons of his career. The big rebound rate, like close a possession out, aggressively pull it down. That stood out to me really for the first time in the first Boston matchup when he was having a actual bad game. He still was doing that job. And he was doing that last night there too. And seeing physicality from Carl, that's real physicality in a real matchup. I think that mattered on top of him, doing his other normal, effective 3-point shooting, scoring at all 3 levels stuff. 2 really good games from Karl Anthony Towns.
This is such a Kyle handpicked stat, but I think it's the first time all season he's taken 5 or more 3-point attempts in 3 straight games. Now they're 1 and 2 in those games. I think there's, now that ties back into the death march and stuff. But I just
sad stat.
But I enjoy. Well, my stat from the other night was that I think when he took 9 against the Mavericks, it was only the 7th time he's taken 9 or more threes since they acquired Rudy Gobert.
No, don't even tell me that.
But again, so he's 2 for 7 from 3 last night. I'm with you. There are plays where he gets cooked on defense. That's kind of the story of Karl Anthony Towns as an NBA player, right? That's why you go get Rudy Gobert, because you don't think he can be the center of a championship team or whatever. And I don't know the exact play, but one of your big man rebound things you're talking about. It was like a shot by Boston late in the game. There was an offensive rebound. There might have been another tip, but he just kind of jumps up and looked as athletic getting this rebound as he did dunking in the Magic game, where he does secure the rebound. It's when then like it went off of Derek White out of bounds or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I remember that.
he had some big grown man rebounds. And again, 25, 13, and 6 with 1 turnover. He's averaging his month of January, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and like 2 turnovers. He's playing really good again. We kind of, over at Flagrant Howls, talk about the last Celtics game was the low point of his season. Like, he was just straight voltage all over the place, had like more turnovers than points. To rebound like he did last night, again, he doesn't have Rudy Gobert alongside him. There's no Kristaps Porzingis, probably worth mentioning that. But
Yeah.
I just thought, again, I don't know if this is another pendulum and this is just the ebbs and flows of an 82-game season, but he had 9 points in that Lakers win on December 30th, and it was like, oh man, he almost lost that game for them. And since then, it's been just real high-level stuff, and it kind of feeds back into what you and I said in November, right? He's
I was going to say, it's starting to feel like that time around the Golden State games, you know? And I mean, part of it is they're putting him in pick and pop more. Like, I just, that's a great action with Conley. And it's the only way to really fuse him together with Ant. He was, again, in the locker room pregame, he was talking about, to Rudy about his dunk. And he goes, that's like the first time, that's the only time I got a roll that whole game, you know, because Rudy was off the floor and he's the, you know, Cat was the 5 there. It's like, again, you can run more pick and roll with Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, primarily his weapon there is going to be as a popping player, but I there's more meat on the bone to Karl Anthony Towns' offensive game, I think, for sure here.
The podcast you did with Britt after the Magic game was...
Can I just say I'm sorry about the sound, everyone, on that? That's like hand raised. I messed something up. I appreciate you still listening for 90 minutes to me and Britt. I didn't have my headphones on because we were recording. Whatever. I messed that up. I'm sorry. But
no one listening to
listen to Britt.
No one listening to this remembers the sound quality. They remember our favorite old man just taking a break to go grab more beer. It was a power move. I would love to do that at some point. But we're not going to talk about the Magic game, but I thought you and Britt did a really, really good job of recapping that, and I think it's worth a re-listen this weekend just to get more X's and O's, and you were both there, which was cool. But to the Karl point, to bring it back to the Karl point, you tweeted out a couple plays, and there was that play when they were up 19 to 11 against the Magic in the first quarter, where they run that set where Karl ends up getting the ball in the corner, right? Yeah. And then he ends up throwing it to Rudy on that kind of own 4-5 pick and roll. Yeah. But I just thought, like, getting Karl a couple opportunities in the corner, it's not, your fear is that he's going to make $70 million next year, and you're going to park this guy in the corner and just like have him be Ryan Anderson.
Whose fear is that? It's Cat's. That's whose fear it is.
Okay, touche. But like that, he's going to become Ryan Anderson, right? But the way that you showed that kind of play and that structure, it's like, man, get Karl an opportunity to hit a 3, but if they come at him, then they can throw it to Rudy. It was just, there's better, more sophisticated ways to get this guy shooting threes. But yeah, if you take nothing else from this, Dane, not the listener, it's that really, after that Dallas game, he's only taken 9 or more threes 7 times since they acquired Rudy Gobert. That's probably a 50 or 60 game sample size. But I'm just warmed in my heart by the fact that he is letting it fly a little more, because in their Orlando game, a game that they just, whether it be the pick and roll, the dunk, whatever, he was 5 for 5 from 3, and that just killed Orlando. Like, it just,
you get him cool and comfortable in his head, you get him playing well for an extended stretch of time. Then, if you're Chris Finch, you can ask him to do. And don't you think he doesn't want to do, which is like he will. My read on that is he's more willing to take on more things that he doesn't want to do once he's caught a rhythm, right? Like, I even just think about how good his defense was at the beginning of the season. All right, this is working. And it was the most diligent I've seen Karl be defensively. Again, that kind of slipped up over, I don't know, like a month or 2 into the season. But I think that's my read on it with Karl, is if you get him going for an extended stretch of time, a week or so, you can add more onto his plate, and he can do it because he's talented enough to do all these things. I'm not even really trying to rip on his defense on Tatum or Brown and stuff. That is an extremely difficult matchup. I mean, for my money, Cat is a noticeably better defender than Naz Reid is. Just overall across the board, their value as defenders. And I don't even think that means that Naz is like a bad defender. But he's noticeably different than Rudy Gobert defensively, worse defensively, because of course he is, because it's Rudy Gobert. I just think things are again trending in the right direction with Karl Anthony Towns. That's what happened in early to mid-November, where this team got on a heater. And it always comes back to Cat for what the ceiling of this team is.
And I'm just blowing your phone up while you're actually trying to work. But in that Magic game, a game that, again, I guess it's worth mentioning that Orlando was down some guys or whatever. But I just keep coming back to, I comp all this stuff to football because I watch so much football. And it seems like in that Magic game, they really established the run with Cat. He was 4 for 5 in that first quarter, 3 threes in that first quarter, 1 from each corner and then at the top. And dumb, silly Kyle and analogies, but you establish the run with Cat in that first quarter, get him comfortable, get him engaged. He's playing better defense. He's opening up more things. It really opens up, as I like to call it, the play action in the fourth quarter. And just, I really think that's a simple strategy to unclog some of this offense. Is the first quarter we lean into Cat. We know Ant will take and make big shots, but let's get the ball moving a little bit more. Let's get Karl spaced. Helps out with, you can never play 5 out when Rudy Gobert comes back, to your point, but you can do different things where you can have Rudy at the free throw line. You can have Rudy at the, at the top, kind of doing Kyle Anderson stuff, like it's a shooting drill.
Rudy was playing the player referencing with him and Cat, the kind of 4-5 interchange in the corner. Rudy started that possession in the corner. That's not something they've done zero of. I bet you there's been 15, 18 possessions this season where Rudy Gobert it's been a play call set and he's started the possession in the corner there. So I think it's again, to your point, as when we recorded last week about experimenting, this is the exact type of stuff I want to see them experiment with over the course of the season. Not to for an entirety of a game, but you go, all right, we got this group on the floor with Rudy for the next 5 minutes. What can we run differently with him? Let's try it out, without sacrificing your chances of, winning the game overall.
That's a good. Can I put a bow on it? Can I wrap this all up? I would just because I think what you just said.
Did I already play the Nikhil? I don't even remember. Did I play the Nikhil Alexander Walker clip?
No, but I would like to hear him because anytime Nikhil talks makes me smarter.
Yeah, let me play that and then we'll put a bow on it.
Times you've played Boston, it's been kind of the game's been within 5 points the whole game, one way or the other. What do you think contributes to that? What has made that such a close matchup between you guys?
I think we're very similar to a degree. Can switch 1 through 5, can play big, can guard. I think great offensive threats, very deep roster. So it's fun competing against a team like that and going toe-to-toe, head-to-head, and especially in the atmosphere in the crowd. I think what's allowed us personally is just our ability to switch when they set a small lineup and guys are heavy in the attack. I think also us playing big. We didn't have Rudy tonight, but Cat played great. Nas played great. Both had double-doubles. So I think small things like that, just our versatility and our depth matches theirs.
I thought that was a cool answer. It's kind of I guess without naming the Brown and Tatum thing, it was I think he's hinting at some of that what you were talking about before, but also kind of up and down the roster, seeing similarities there and the ability or the necessity they had to kind of switch 5 and do that last night. I mean, this has just been 2 of the most fun games of the NBA season, I would think, overall, not just Wolves wise, right? They've been 2 great matchups, and I guess unless they meet in the finals, we won't see it again till next season. But I've loved these 2 games.
And we talked about everyone last night that played north of double-digit minutes, right? We talked about, we did the Jaden discussion, we did the Ant discussion, and we talked about Karl, we talked about Kyle. Naz Reid, 19 and 10 was just great off the bench. That's like the type of stuff that gets you 6 Man of the Year votes when, like, if Nas just is giving you that type of production night in and night out. And the guy that we didn't really touch on, so I'm glad you jammed that in at the end, was Nikhil.
Dude, Nas and Nikhil at the beginning of the fourth quarter when Ant had to sit to rest, I was like, oh, you got to rest Ant here. Like, I get it, because Ant played 46 of 53 minutes. He sat the first 4 minutes of that fourth quarter, and that was huge. But Nikhil hit the above the break three on the right side, and in the left corner, he had the pump sidestep three there, which I've seen him do 1,000 times in practice. I was out there watching warm-ups before, and I was gonna like tweet something. I was gonna be like, Nikhil Alexander-Walker like looks super dialed in, like to knows he's gonna have a bigger role tonight. And I was thinking, I'm like, this is always that's when I'm out on the court watching. Like, I always see his and like Troy Brown are out there. I was like, that would be disingenuous, because this is exactly what Nikhil Alexander-Walker's pregame workout looks like every single time. The kid is so fucking precise.
He is the definition of basically like stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
He just stays ready. Do you know what he did in the fourth?
That just like numbers? What?
Like just 4 for 4, 10 points. He finished with 15, but 10 points in the fourth quarter, 2 big threes. And I'm talking, man, like, I know we're at 75 minutes in, 2 big fucking threes.
Yeah.
Like, watching that game, again, you're in the arena. I would have loved to have been there. But on the timeline, you got, Dan Devine, you got all the people like, oh my God, Nikhil Alexander-Walker is having a moment. He was a throw-in in the D'Lo Mike Conley trade. So I think we talked about everyone. I think Nikhil is my favorite player to talk to, like, in a locker room setting. I just think at Media Day, I always reference this. His maturity, his growth. What is he? He's 24? Like, you make it sound like he's 32 years old. He has really realized as a lottery player that maybe didn't live up to his expectations. He has found a role. He's found a home. I love watching that guy play. But to kind of put a bow on it, as we started out with the travel and now they have ended this death march, we can kind of all take a deep breath. 9-7 over that 16-game stretch, all against teams at or above 500. Their schedule now opens up. It does create another chapter of this book, right? Because now they got the Pistons and the Wizards and the Blazers come to town, the teams that give you heart attacks 12 months ago. But I did notice this. I think it was on basketball, or I don't know, some website. The Wolves do have the easiest remaining strength of schedule in the league now moving forward. I think it's just worth mentioning. I don't really like getting into that stuff because you never know who's going to play, but I think that's kind of a big thing to just...
And do they have more back-to-backs than anybody else?
They have 100.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like they have a lot of those coming up, but
11, right?
That's what today is all about. They fly home last night, probably. They get home. Now you have some more home games coming up, more back-to-backs. So it'll be interesting again. We didn't really talk about it much, but are they going to get into load management a little bit, or was it that the fact that the Delta plane landed at Boston Garden? Like,
so I don't think the Mike Conley thing's going to be a thing.
Okay.
One thing I heard over the time here was Mike really wanted to play 82 games this season. That was like a
shout out
that
to
was
him,
like
man. He's a legend.
Goal, whatever. And obviously relented on that, but I think that was a product of the travel and circumstance of all of this. So I mean, I don't know if I can't have 82, then maybe I'll just do 74 or something. But that sounds to me like a guy who wants to do 81. But the thing is I don't think these aren't like this team isn't injured right now. There is obviously there's an element of the Gobert thing that is rest, probably a pretty big one. But like he's got a hip thing going too. This team is healthy, and the reality of this situation, and even if the strength of schedule is easy, when you get into the middle of the season and you get closer to physically redlining, or you're playing these back-to-backs, like guys are going to get hurt. Odds are, right? Or have to miss some time. So it's that's going to be a big part of the next chapter. And this one, and I guess just to like wrap it up with the death march, like they got through it. 16 games against very difficult teams, 11 of them on the road, 17,000 miles traveling, whatever. 9-7, even though the offense really fell apart during that time, turnovers became a major problem. They're navigating all of these things, Kyle, like Ant evolving as a person and desiring, and these what Carl is figuring out, like how he fits into all of this. They are still very much learning themselves, and in that process of learning themselves leads people like you and I to be like, whoa, what is this? What is that? You know, that's just when a team is evolving, you're like that. This is a dent, you know? But they are winning through the dents, and they have all season. They exceeded pretty much everyone's expectation in this time. And that's why we feel pretty good about not pretty good, probably feel really good about the Minnesota Timberwolves a month out from the trade deadline.
Very few humans will have success in life without adversity. And I think this team, this start to this season, first place in the West since November 18th, 3 times as many days in first place as they've had in the first 34 years of existence, is because of the adversity they faced last regular season. That's just how I think. And if the only adversity you're going to face is in April and May, you are doomed and you have no chance. So I believe that games like last night, a game that I paint with a positive and some might paint as a negative, we can agree to disagree, but it was adversity. We saw how they responded. And
who paints that game as a negative?
Buddy, hop online. Okay. Hop online. No, so again, I think that's a good way to wrap it up. And now some more adversity comes, right? Like, it's not, we did that pod once. It was like a deep breath pod. I think today's another deep breath pod or a deep breath moment, but it doesn't get any easier because the hardest game on the schedule all season was the Detroit Pistons. You can't lose that game. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got the Blazers coming to town. You do have the Wizards. You have now a Grizzlies team that looks completely different without Ja. So
I'm pumped for the Clippers game on Sunday, man.
I am too. I might have sprinkled a little something on them at 10-1. I like watching them play, but those are two different styles as well, right? Like, that is one team that plays completely different than what Minnesota plays in terms of size and speed and pace. But yeah,
I'm glad also, it's Portland first too. Like, yeah. I think they're going to be a little hungover, like not literally hungover, but or maybe I don't know.
You know what they need? Stone and Skillet English muffins.
Yes. All right, that's a good place to wrap it up. I guess we can just remind people there. That is stoneandskillet.com. Just go check out the website. And honestly, like, if you're already buying English muffins, like, try these ones. I swear they're better.
10 out of 10.
Yes. And then what else do we have? We had prize picks, NFL stuff all weekend.
When's your next pod? You going to take a couple of days off, fly home, chill?
Yeah. I'm flying home after this. I'm not. What is my schedule?
You get to fly the team plane, right? That's how the media works. No.
Did I tell you I'm flying JetBlue back? I did Delta the whole way, and then
better than Alaska Airlines because that plane that had the door that was right there, like 0.1 miles from my apartment. That door falls and lands and almost kills someone. So Alaska Airlines stock down, Delta, JetBlue stock up.
I don't know about JetBlue stock up, but it was if we wanted to record a pod this morning, I couldn't take the Delta flight.
Monday.
What else was I saying?
You'll be back on Monday.
Portland one. I'll be back on Monday, but also Patreon. Let us know if you want to go to that Portland game. I mean, it's like, I don't know, 80 people maybe a time send me that they're available for it. It's not like that crazy of odds. Sometimes some games it's less. So, take the time, go to Patreon, particularly if you're already a subscriber. Like, just
go to these games, watch this team. This team is awesome.
Yeah.
Target Center is Celtics are 16-0, 17-0 at home. Wolves are 14-2. They're going to come out. They might be hungover, but they're going to try to. This next chapter starts now. More adversity comes with a easy schedule. They don't do well in those situations. Can't wait to watch them on Friday. And if you can go to the game, let Dane know.
Yeah, he's Kyle Theige. You guys are recording Flagrant Howls over at Score North later this afternoon. Those two will probably bicker less than Kyle and I did today. But for real, Kyle, thank you for waking up early to do this. And man, this is fun. Till Monday when I think I record with Chris. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.